If you like the video, please consider supporting James Corp on Patreon. Hi everyone, and welcome back to week 8, the final week of our Liminal game, where we are now going to spend the time reviewing the game. It won't be massively in depth. We're not looking to like nitpick everything or go massively in depth. It's just a pleasant on our thoughts of how we thought the system worked, what we liked about it, what bits we didn't like about it. Was there anything that we could... well, there's only 3 questions, and then the 4th question is, what was our favourite moment of the game that we just played? If we have any. If you got more than one, just share more than one. But yeah, I think I'm too loud. That's what I think. Let me turn myself down. There we go. That's better.
Actually, if anything, now you're quieter than everyone else, James.
I shouldn't be. This is 15. 15 is what it's normally at. Let's go around the table. We'll get people to introduce themselves. They don't have to tell you who they were playing, because we've done that for the past week. Also, it's on the screen if you're watching this on the screen. If you're listening to this on the podcast, tough, you can't see it. Ha ha ha! How do you feel? Anyway, don't forget, if you're watching this on YouTube, to like and subscribe. Maybe leave a comment as well, because that'd be lovely. So I'm James, or James Corp TV, or no, actually just James Corp, I think, on Twitch. I am the hostess with the mostest. I run Chambers of Roleplay, and it has been my pleasure to introduce these fine, lovely people. So I'm going to start differently this week. I want to start with Sue. Sue, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Sue. I'm also known as Savage Spiel, and I'm a huge fan of Liminal, as you've probably all guessed by now.
Couldn't tell. Neil.
I am Neil. I have really enjoyed this game because I too am a huge fan of Liminal. This is the first time I've ever been able to play it, because I usually have to run it. I wrote the Pax Londinium supplement, the upcoming Nova Castria supplement, a couple of case files as well, and I am the rules wrangler, according to the rule book, or the rules pedant, according to other people.
Natalie?
Hi, I'm Natalie. I came here like it seems everyone else, because I just really liked Liminal and the setting. I played a one-off game with Sue just on spec at a small local con, although it was online because COVID, and spent a lot of time trying to find another online game to join, and ended up here.
And last but not least, Ryan.
Last but not least, or last but least? Hey, my name is Ryan. On Discord, you can find me as Nearth Lopic. What brought me to Liminal is came across a review of it a while ago, read the review, said, I've got to see this, bought the book and did some research on YouTube and saw Liminal being run by one Paul Mitchner and being played by James, Sue, and others. And I said, I really got to try this. And when the opportunity came up, because I saw another adventure run by Sue of Liminal, and I said, I want to play in a Sue run game and I want to play in Liminal. So when this opportunity came up, I just had to jump on it. And I'm very thankful for James for selecting me for this game. That's
right. That's because you bribed me by supporting me on Twitch and Patreon. That's a solid way of making sure I select you. There we go.
Just Twitch. I have not bribed you on Patreon.
Oh, fuck! I fucked up then. Shit.
Yeah. Mwah, it's too late now.
Cool. Thank you very much. So yeah, it's going to be quite simple. Like I said, we're not looking to, give it 5 out of 5 stars. You know, we're not looking to give it a number or anything. It's just literally thoughts and stuff like that. So take this as basically our own opinions, really. So the first question is, no, not that one. This one. So, what one thing did you like about the system and why? Now, maybe best as I'm the host of this, maybe I should go first and then let everyone else have a chat, or should I ask questions and let everyone else answer and then put my thoughts out there? Fine.
You go first, James. Go on.
Oh, I'm going to go first. First time in my life, I'm going to go first. I just really like the simplicity of it. I really like the fact that it was a really simple system. Roll 2d6, add your stats, right? Add your skill to it, and any other modifiers that can come in from traits or specializations. And generally, you got to beat an 8 unless there's a difficulty applied. That's what I really liked. I also like the fact that it was. The GM didn't roll any dice, which means you can just concentrate on the story. I just thought it was a nice, neat little package. That's my thoughts. Is that what I need to do? Do I need to go more in depth? Yeah, I'm not the greatest lover of over crunchy games, basically. Even though I'm about to run Warhammer in a few weeks as a private game. But I'm doing that on a virtual tabletop, so a lot of the crunchiness will be handled by that. But yeah, I do as a GM, I definitely do more enjoy like Powered by the Apocalypse World style games, which are just generally more of a not a sit back GM, but you can definitely more think about a story rather than having to like wrangle the rules.
So I'll go next. This may come off as backhanded, but please let me elaborate. The rules don't get in the way of the game. James, you kind of sort of touched on this. The crunchier rule systems, a la GURPS, Warhammer, etc. You can spend half or more of a 4-hour game session in one single combat. And that just slows the game down to a crawl to the point where you almost forget why you were in the combat to begin with. And as a gamer of 30 plus years, I've come across that a lot. And to have a game that the rules are there to keep the structure of the game, to say, yes, I succeeded, no, I didn't. But you don't have to flip through the rule book to see what all is going on, or you don't have to look at 4 different spots on your character sheet to say, all right, I got this modifier, this modifier, this modifier, this modifier. So my entire thing is a +2. Okay. You don't have that with Liminal. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So yeah, for me, the best thing about the system is that it does not get in the way of the gameplay.
Natalie? Yeah, I agree with both of you. I like the simplicity. I guess for me, I like the crew aspect of it. So that idea of in the character generation phase, doing the crew stuff as well, that was new to me. I mean, I hadn't played a system that it was quite that focused that way, and I think a lot of some interesting things can come out of that. But yeah, I mean, mostly just the simplicity, and as you say, it didn't mean that you spent ages sort of faffing around trying to work out what you were doing. So yeah, I think that's the main thing. The crew thing was interesting for me because I hadn't come across that before. So that was new to me at any rate.
Cool. You should
I'd like
check
to
out
throw
some...
Sorry, go on, James.
I was about to say, yeah, you should check out some Powered by the Apocalypse World games. They go even to more depth with like tying the groups together with like bonds and stuff. Neil, what was you saying?
I'd like to give a shout out to the way that will works. I mean, ostensibly, Liminal has a very similar core engine to Traveller, roll 2d6 and add your skill, reach over a target number of 8. That's pretty much Traveller. But the way that will allows you to manipulate your dice and to get a success if you want it, and to get a critical if you want it, adds a sort of story gamey narrative nuance to it that isn't there in the sort of very basic mechanic. But there's more to it than that, because it also balances magicians against mundanes, because magicians have to spend quite a lot of will in order to use their powers. They have less innate luck in the dice rolling than mundanes do. So they have to watch their will quite carefully, whereas the mundane characters, especially the determined mundane characters, maybe with a couple of points in conviction, can have quite a lot of will to play with, and therefore they are possibly more competent in their skills than a magician would be, although the magician does have the bigger, flashier things they can lean back on. And it's a good balancing point. I'm really interested that Paul brought up Buffy as a influence in his interview, because it's a very similar idea to how the drama points in the Buffy role-playing game worked, where the Slayer got very few, but not Slayers, it's been a while.
White hats.
Yes.
The Scooby Gang.
The White Hats, that's right, that's what they were called, got lots. So they could do more to pull themselves out of the fire, whereas the Slayer just had to sort of barbecue there quite nicely because they didn't have as many options, but they were a Slayer, so they got to kill things more. So I thought the way that Will works practically is really subtle, but it's really clever, and I love it.
So,
Well, one thing I really like from the GM end of things is not ever having to roll dice. Because I always feel really bad when I've got some big bad guy and then they roll a double 6 and terrible things happen, and I feel kind of guilty about it. So in this game that doesn't happen because it's never me making the roll, it's always the player. So if they get a critical fumble, it wasn't my fault.
sure. That's what evil GMs say all the time. It's not my fault that I killed you.
Self-inflicted wound.
That's Bart Simpson walking across a room, kicking his feet out. It's your fault if you get kicked because you're in front of me.
And I want to reiterate, I really do like the fact that the will system means that you can push yourself into passing things that you might otherwise have failed. Because from my point of view, a lot of the time I want you to succeed so that you do find the clue or defeat the monster or whatever it is that's going to drive us to the next bit of the investigation.
It's always important, especially if that clue's like vitally important. How do you handle it if they fail though?
Well, there's also stuff in the rules for that, because a fail doesn't necessarily have to mean a failure. See, in another game I ran, they were trying to go through someone's computer to get information, and got a critical fumble. So I decided that they still found the information, but were all traumatized from the hideous amounts of porn they found on the computer.
Failing forward, right? That's the saying, isn't that the terminology?
Yes, had them all make a conviction roll to see how traumatized they were by it.
How blinded are you by this porn? All right.
And if they get a critical success, they're turned on by it.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
The next question is, what one thing did you not like about the system and why? So this is probably going to be the more difficult thing. And I'm not gonna steal someone else's thunder who mentioned it last week. From last week. I'm going to come up with something else. So I'm going to ask someone else while I'm thinking of what to say. Ryan.
All right. After some thought on this, I'm not a fan of the way experience points are rewarded.
Really?
Yeah, because there were points in the game where I would sit, not really say a whole lot for almost an hour, because it didn't make sense for my character to. It wasn't me just being a wallflower, but I would still get the same amount of experience as everyone else in the end. Um, I'm more of a fan of, I like the 1 to 5 range. I'm a fan of, if you did something, if you played in character, if you made a lot of really good choices, you should get rewarded for that. And in this case, do I learn something about somebody else in my party? Yes or no? Do I gain an experience? And I'd gain an experience point from that. So at some point, we're going to know each other so well, you're not going to get any experience from that particular thing. In the meantime, I could be going out there risking my neck for a bunch of mundanes. I could be getting into fist fights with motorcycle gangs, all that, and not gain a single experience point from that. So that's the portion of the experience point reward system I'm not a fan of.
Fair enough. Sue?
I'm still struggling to think of something, to be honest.
Right, Neil.
I have one thing that I discovered through play. I hate being able to cheese systems and being able to get to the end of the entire overall. It's not that I dislike it, it's a part I wish I'd caught earlier. Being able to overroll your will and get an experience point does bring about a barrage. Well, it can bring about a barrage towards the end of a game when right, probably not going to be spending my will that much, going, oh, let's find an excuse for me to lean on my drive to get that extra experience point. Experience points are quite valuable, and just being able to go, if I roll more than a 1 on a D6, I'm in. I'm running a campaign now and saw somebody do that. They were on full will and they criticaled and then spent a point anyway, just so they could then lean on their drive and get an experience point. And rules as written, that's allowed. Yeah, it feels a bit cheap. So that one, I would probably house rule or something like that. I don't know how, but I would. But that's just, it's not bad. It's part of the game, but it's the sort of thing that just feels a bit cheesy. And yeah.
Yeah, you have to gain at least 3 wills in order to get that experience.
Something like that. Yeah, it has to be something like that. Yeah.
Which you can still cheese though, right?
Oh yeah. But there's more of a risk to it. A 50-50 cheese instead of a 1 in 6 cheese.
So what I would like to have seen, and this is just like, it's not a massively important thing. I guess you could add it if you wanted to. Like I was saying about Powered by the Apocalypse World, I'd like to see more ways of other ways of basically like bonds. Like bonds. If you've ever played Dungeon World or whatever. There's like bonds, and you can have a bond with each party member. I'd like to see that to add roleplay value to the game. So like Neil could have had like Samuel Laker is a fucking idiot. He needs to prove otherwise, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Or something like that. That would have been pretty cool to like being able to lean on that. And I also struggled with leaning on my drive because I guess it's my fault the way I worded it, which was like pay off the debt that I owe. It wasn't supposed to be monetary debt that I owed. It was like I did wrong. I need to pay for my sins, basically, of what I did in the past. But I always struggled with when I could lean on it and when it was, when I could think about leaning on my drive. So, I'd like to have seen perhaps other ways of getting experience or recovering will through just roleplay rather than luck of a dice roll or something. But that's my only complaint. Or did I just ramble bollocks?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think very similar. I guess partly because of the way I wrote my drive, because I wasn't really sure how it fitted in mechanically at that stage. I hadn't read into it that much. You definitely feel like at times you're just like, oh, I need to do something to lean on my drive, and that can make for a slightly stilted experience, I think, because you just desperately need the will. But I think if I were playing again, I'd just be more careful about what I picked for my drive, I guess, knowing that, just to make it fit in better rather than trying to sort of slightly shoehorn it in. And I know, as we've discussed previously, there is an issue. I can imagine if you played a very long campaign of this, there are, and I know Neil said this, but I concur, is that, you know, there's a limit to the skills you get. So there's a tendency to sort of drift towards everyone having the same skills if they're not magicians. And I mean, I'm not sure what the solution to that is particularly, but it'd be nice to stay specialist. But how you get around that without having just having to escalate the baddies all the time, I don't know, so that you stay matched. But maybe that's what you do.
In defense of drives, just for a moment, you can change your drive. So you could, at any point in time, you know, for example, have approach Sue and say, do you think narratively my debt's paid off now? And Sue would go, yeah. They go, right. So now my drive could be forge my reputation in the liminal world, now that I'm not having to pay this imaginary debt I've got to somebody, and that drives forward your story. So I think being aware that I mean, as far as I'm aware, Sue, there's no limit on how many times you can change your drive or anything like that. It is just narratively, this thing has happened, isn't it? So, you know, you can make your drives relatively short term if you want. That's the thing that's pushing you along. Certainly Dr. Kane's drive of trying to find his lost lover, lost in a fey realm, quite obscure, but that would have had to have ended when I did, or, you know, found out I couldn't find her, then that would have gone away, and I'd had to have got a new drive. So you're not left with the same drive forever. You can be quite agile with it.
Do you get anything for completing a drive?
No.
Oh, okay.
He says, reaching for the rule book.
There is a bit in the book about completing your drive, but I can't remember what it says offhand.
If I was a GM, I'd award either an advancement or an experience or something like that. But that's me. I don't know if that's probably not book. That's just me.
I think it depends. I mean, I think in terms of fitting in well with the flow of the game, Ryan's character's drive, which is just protect the crew, was much easier to sort of point to than some of the others. So my drive was more linked to sort of supporting animals, and with a minor in kind of acting more as a medic. And the only time I lent on my drive was really where I was acting as a medic. And in retrospect, it would have made more sense to just make my drive, you know, healing and something more generic.
I think we've underplayed drives somewhat. The rulebook, page 86, we all focused on page 85, the experience rules, but page 86 tells you something different. If you conclude your drive as a character, you could retire your character, or you could get a new drive and gain 2 experience ticks. Tick 2 experience boxes. That's good. If your crew fulfills its goal, then that could be a logical point to end its series of cases. Or the crew can get a new goal and tick 2 experience boxes. each member of the crew can tick 2 experience boxes. So I think that's something I hadn't quite gathered, because then drives are maybe being applied too broadly, and they need to, you could never complete being a medic. Vic could never complete protecting his new pack.
Oh, sure I can. You'd just be dead.
That's it. You'd have failed though then, wouldn't you? So they're actually not great for drives, because they're broad enough that you can get the XP. You can please excuse the for terminology. You could farm it for XP every week, but you'd never be able to get any conclusion and get that extra stuff. That's interesting. I've not realised that before, or I'd forgotten it.
Ooh, got rules wrong. That's getting it wrong.
But not wrong. It's just we didn't quite get the subtleties of it.
Didn't really use that part.
Yeah.
So I think I've only got one thing to add on things we didn't like so much. That is the overly useful nature of the lore skill, because it's used for both knowing stuff about the hidden world and for doing magic. It tends to end up with a fair amount of overlap, where there's not a lot of point in putting a bunch of points in lore if you aren't a magician, because the magicians on your team are going to pile up that skill to be good at doing magic with it. So one thing that I think would be an improvement is if you could use different skills for different types of magic. One of the magic types is Weathermonger, and so maybe something like Survival would be a more appropriate skill to be rolling on that one.
Right.
So there is one exception, which is Changeling Glamour, which uses art rather than lore. So there is precedent for using different skills.
Yeah, I think that would solve it probably.
So divination would be awareness.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe.
Necromancy would be medicine.
And I haven't fully thought it through, but
yeah, no, it makes
certainly doable.
sense, doesn't it?
You could also take away some of the. I mean, I guess you can a bit anyway with Bookworm, but you could have sort of academic knowledge separate from ability to cast spells type knowledge as well. But maybe just having a different skill associated with it would solve that problem anyway.
It's a good idea, that.
Yep, the rules wrangler failed the rules wrangling.
I knew you were going to say that at some point in time. I know where you live.
Do you?
Yeah, you told us which village you live near.
Shit. That's all right.
Send the lads round.
Can I have a cup of tea when you pop round?
Yeah.
Next question then. Did you find the mechanics support the story or get in the way? Or did they get in the way? Sue?
I would say that they support it. And obviously, Ryan's talked a bit about that already. I said the fact that if you have a skill, you've got a reasonable chance of passing it most of the time. Which means I, as the GM, have a reasonable knowledge of what you're going to be able to do. So I can generally count on you passing the rolls I really want you to pass.
Neil?
Yeah, I think the rules very much do. I think they're flavourful where they need to be, and mechanically, I mean, I'm not a great fan of the mechanics melt into the background analogy, but they do. Once you've got the system, you don't really need to do much mental gymnastics in order to be able to just do your thing and press the button and do the dice roll and know what you need to come out the other end. It becomes very instinctive. You learn the game in about 4 minutes. Both rules are applied and that's it.
Yeah. And I've got the book here, but I've not often had to look anything up other than the experience questions.
I had to keep looking up divination though. Like, what can I do again with it?
Part of that is you kind of got thrust into it during character generation.
Oh yeah, because I weren't actually going to be the magician, right? It was, I think someone else was like going to be the actual spellcaster, and then when everyone was like, "Oh no, I'm not playing a spellcaster," I was like, "Shit, someone's got to be a spellcaster." So I went with that. It still worked though, right? Managed to do it. I do feel that the rules didn't get in the way at all. We didn't spend ages looking through the rule book trying to figure out how a rule worked or some other thing. I mean, like I said, the only time it ever really affected me was when I had to check how divination worked. It could have. I mean, I did also feel that that my divination could have broke the game a few times, and because I think I mentioned it a few times, didn't I? I was like, I don't really want to just break the game just by solving it with one spell cast, right?
And I think that's where Neil's right, because it costs you so much will. You're only ever going to do it on the key points, and presumably those key points are points where Sue does want to point us in a particular direction.
All right, yeah, good point. Yeah, true. Did you feel that my magic could have broken the game, Sue, at any point?
I don't think so. And
I mean, I could
there is
ask...
the limiting factor of the number of will points you've got. So I knew you weren't going to be using it constantly. So
No,
because I had to make sure I had some fun information to give you when you did use it.
Cool. Did Natalie, did you answer this, or did you? Have we answered?
Well, this is the mechanic, wasn't it? Yeah. The fact that I wasn't as completely lost as I often am with mechanics probably means that it didn't get in the way. I think there was one moment where we had to roll for initiative and I wasn't aware of what to do there, but since that was all done in Roll20 anyway, it was fine. In fact, I had more issue with the mechanics of where things were on Roll20 than the actual game system itself, I think.
That's fair enough.
And I kind of touched on it, but so no, they don't get in the way of the game. I also don't think the rules enhance the game. That said, very few systems in my mind truly enhance the game. Powered by the Apocalypse usually does, because actions.
You didn't like the Numenera experience, which is similar to the way Powered by the Apocalypse World games worked with the questions at the end, right? When it
I'm going with task resolutions, not experience.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm going with what happens in the middle of the game is my approach to this question. And I'm picking on Powered by the Apocalypse because you have your list of moves, and that's what you're going against. And not everybody can do that. That list of moves helps flavor the character, which in turn flavors the game for me. Whereas if I'm just rolling 2 dice and then adding based on the skill, it doesn't take away from it by any stretch. We're not talking somebody going absolute detail crazy in GURPS. It also doesn't enhance it. I could take the liminal setting, drop it in GURPS, and the liminal setting would feel the same. Where if it really tied in very closely, Nibiru is a much more obscure but really good example of a system being married to the setting and game.
Sorry, what?
Nibiru, Nibiru.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, check it out. It's really interesting. You're playing an amnesiac, and throughout the game, instead of gaining experience, you gain memories, which helps you gain your various bonuses in that. but you're gaining these memories by, if you bomb a die roll, you bombed it for a reason, so it triggers a memory. Or if you critically succeed a die roll, something happened in your past. Maybe you're trying to shoot somebody, maybe you were a marksman in your past, and it triggers a memory. So you're discovering your character the whole way. So Nibiru, you're learning about the character, and you can't really take that setting and plug it into a different system and still have the same feel.
Cool. Right. Final question. And this might be a longer one, because people might have more things to say about this than just one answer. What is your favourite moments from the games that we just played? So, I'm going to start. A lot of my favourite moments was interaction with Dr. K. Moore, and the fact that he liked to think he's the leader, but clearly Charlie was in charge of everything. Really, he just likes to think he's in charge. I also like the fact that he held such disdain for Samuel Aker that he couldn't fathom the fact that Samuel could actually have been something good, somewhat good at things, and would often surprise him. Oh, and I'm going to let other people mention the Book of Doors, because I don't want to take everything. But yeah, it was just a lot of the interactions I just found it, especially when I was editing it, I would find myself chuckling at a lot of the just the digs and the jives and the just the what's it called? Comradeship? Is that the word? Camaraderie. Yeah, that word. The word that I'm gonna struggle to say. I just thought it was. It just worked really well. I just thought it was a good mix of British humour. I guess it is British humour, where you dig at your friends. If you don't dig at your friends, they're clearly not your friends. I thought, yeah, I just enjoyed a lot of the just the interactions with everyone in the group. It was just a really enjoyable time for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I gotta second that. I'll give you my favorite overall, and that's the character interactions. I mean, I think it was the start of the third mystery where we were just bantering back and forth for about 30 minutes before anybody even knocked on the door, because what are we going to do with all these new library books and that kind of stuff. And it was just so much fun. And that's what I'm going to take home. If I was to pick out a moment, I'm going to be selfish and picking a fight with a motorcycle gang. I, as a player, had no idea if the character was going to live through that.
I was worried about my character living through that as well.
Well, see, that was a difference. I don't know if anybody picked up on it. I was a lot more aggressive when nobody else was present. See, you were hidden, and I know how well Sam can hide, because I knew exactly where Sam was supposed to be, and turned out exactly where Sam was, but I had no idea Sam was there. So I wasn't worried about your hiding ability. But I get a lot more aggressive, especially around other werewolves who are withholding information from me. And I'm not worried about protecting anyone. So I'm much more reserved when I'm around everyone else, because I don't want to get you guys killed. Again, protecting my pack. And at the end of the last game where the doc said he finds Vic terrifying because of how aggressive he can be, and that's the first time he threw the opening punch. What I think might have been lost was the opposing character still lived. I stopped before I could have ended it, and I didn't want to. So Vic can be a killer, but he's not. So those are my two. By far, my favorite is definitely the interaction between the characters. But if I had to pick a specific moment in the game, that was my favorite. Doing this, getting the spotlight.
Oh, another thing I enjoyed as well was Natalie's like obsession with those chickens at the farm. Natalie?
Yeah, I mean, like everyone else, I really like the character interaction, everything from Neil's character boring the pants off James's character with a whole story all the way to Swansea about grant applications and funding.
That was to Vic. That was to Vic, wasn't it? That wasn't to me. That was to Ryan.
It seemed to be to the car in general.
It was to the car.
Since I was driving, I was trying to ignore it as much as possible. I love the fact we ended up with a pack of boggarts. I mean, just the amusement value that could be had for that on an ongoing campaign. But I really, really liked the sense of place that we had with Northampton, so that everything was just tied in so nicely to, Northampton wasn't kind of like, oh, it just happens to be set here. It was just tied really, really nicely into that. So I did like that. And I think that plays well with Liminal generally, just that idea that there were these stories and they were tied into Northampton, or just ideas like the Little Red Riding Hood link with the Red Caps and the Wolves. So yeah, there were just lots of very clever things about the way Sue wrote the adventures that I really, really liked.
Yeah, I really enjoyed my interactions with Samuel. It was one of the highlights of, I think it's one of the highlights of role playing. It's like you can unleash your shadow self, because I'm actually quite nice and I'm not an arse in real life. But Dr. Kane clearly was an absolute arsehole, arrogant, nasty, vicious-tongued.
It's because he's jealous. That's why.
And that begrudging respect that he had that was growing with Samuel, that was like that's your good idea for the week, is it? Stuff, and his complete annoyance at the fact that everybody got offered a cup of tea when they entered in, and all that stuff. It was just wonderful to be able to play something like that. I really, really enjoyed that interaction in particular. It was very memorable. The one thing I really liked, though, was the construction of the scenarios, Sue. I will take my hat off to you. It's very, very easy to do ABC scenarios. Here's your mystery. Here's the investigative bit. Here's the resolution. It's bread and butter. But to do like A, B, F, G, Z, C scenarios is a lot harder. And so, especially the last two, where it was like, right, here is a start, and you think you solved it, but the solution has only opened up another problem. And that problem opens up another problem. And that's the real thing, especially the final one. The final one, honestly, at the end of the first session, I was like, this could have about 5 different resolutions. I know we've not missed any clues. I was sat there looking at everything going, tune in next week to find out. It was only slightly less complicated than the ending of this week's Doctor Who. And it's brilliant to be able to do that. So well done. I look forward to seeing them in print so I can find out more about what was going on, because, they were excellent. So that's my big takeaway.
Yeah, no, I agree. I spent a lot of time speculating about all the things we didn't find out in the last adventure.
Savage Case Files. I'm looking forward to it.
And maybe next year, at the same time, perhaps we could do another. Well, like we've been saying, we could do another batch of the same characters or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Sue, what about you? as a games master, what was your favourite moments of the of the game?
Well, one of them was when you were doing the object reading on the body in the final adventure. And you were saying, I hope this isn't going to be first person. And my first thought was, well, it is now.
Shit, so I should have kept my mouth shut. Damn it.
I'm not sure what I was actually planning at that point, but the moment you said that, I knew what I had to do.
Yeah.
And also, I really liked the bits where you were starting to put the clues together and see where things were going. And yeah, Sam's good ideas for the week, which frequently turned out to be correct. So,
Wow.
having assembled all these clues, seeing people put them all together is just a lovely thing to watch.
But were they correct, or did you just go with them? Did you just let the players come up with the ideas and just go, yeah, that's I haven't written a conclusion. That's
James Chambers never ask a GM to pull back the curtain.
All right, I'm not going to.
I generally had several possibilities for how things could end up depending on what you did. So particularly in the last one, I didn't know how you were going to react to things generally. And for all I knew, you might have decided that the Red Cat was entirely in the right and left her to get on with it.
If it wasn't for me making a promise that we were actually trying to help the gang, I probably would have done it. I probably would have left the Red Cat to.
Yeah, I mean, I did wonder what might befall our gang later, having left whether we should have closed the portal or not. I mean, I think once we'd made the promise, obviously that wasn't an option, but whether that was going to cause us a lot more grief down the road because we had an open portal with Red Cats coming through.
Actually, I have one question for Sue that I was wondering. When we chose our our crew goal at the beginning of the game, and that it was to keep the barriers between the liminal world and the mundane world, to keep them apart as our drive, did that influence the stories, or did the stories that you'd already thought you were going to run for the mini campaign have that as a theme? Because they all seem to have that theme of thresholds and doors and things like that.
Well, the first adventure was pre-written, the one with the castle. So it was just coincidence that happened to fit in with the crew goal. But I think the second two were somewhat influenced by that.
Excellent.
Although, to be fair, I mean, that is pretty much the definition of the word liminal. So it seems reasonable that there might be a lot of overlap with other worlds.
I also enjoyed the fact that Vic started to use people as weapons as well.
That's going to be his next specialty.
I mean, there's so much that was really enjoyable. I just I can't, I could put it into words, but it might take me a while. The stories were excellent. I enjoy the fact that they felt mystical. Is that the word? Is that the right term? Like a bit, like we were living in a fairy tale almost ourselves. Like, we had we made contact with the river spirit. Like in the first, was it the first session? And I was literally just made an offhand comment like, oh. Yeah, don't dispel that. She'll be a giant dragon, because I was like literally just thinking of like at that point, the spirit away, and the water spirit that was the dragon. I think I know I said that. I don't know if I said that on air or whether I said it during a break, but that sort of just certain things like I was going, what is it? What if this is a water spirit? We don't want to be it was just awesome. It's probably one of the highlights of this year. I think Alien and Liminal this year, this game has been the highlight roleplay wise of this year, I think, for me, especially on stream. Just it was the right tone, it was the right feeling. It was excellent. give yourself a pat on the back, Sue. If I was a millionaire, I'll give you some money, but I'm not. Anyone else got anything else they want to add?
I just had a lot of fun. Thank you all, especially Sue for putting it together, and James for doing the stream and coordinating everything.
It doesn't take much. As long as I can get the people on, there's not much coordination.
I think you're underselling yourself there a bit, James. There's a lot that goes on, not least all the editing.
Sue's going to be doing her Matrons of Mystery. Is that what it's called?
Cool.
Yeah.
On the 22nd. So if people are interested in signing up for that, I'll put that out.
Which recently dropped, and Sue forgot to plug it.
Oh yeah, plug it, Sue.
Yeah, it's available from Lulu now.
Oh, cool.
Lulu,
Yep.
It's a print-on-demand service.
do you have a link?
I will get you one.
Pull it from your Discord, James.
I thought that was
Yep.
Amazon.
Try the
Oh, no, it's there.
self-promotion
I've got it
section.
there. Okay, hang on. Yeah, so you can buy it from there. I thought you was doing it on Amazon. Not Amazon, drive-through.
I'm working on that, but their requirements for their files are a lot more complicated than Lulu's.
Oh, okay. But yeah, next year should be interesting. We're going to be doing, like I said, Twilight 2000. We're going to be doing hopefully the desanctioned once I can nail down. Is it Paul? Try and get his game solidified. We'll also be doing Quest World, which will be run by Dr. Ian Cooper, and that will be probably end of February after we've done Twilight 2000. And then yeah, we'll see what the rest of the year holds. But yeah, there's going to be plenty of shit going on, and hopefully interesting shit that people want to get involved in. So yeah, and if anyone's got any suggestions of wanting to run something or anything, just let me know. But yeah, let's do some final shout outs and then we'll wrap up for this this season of Test Chamber. So we'll start with Sue. Sue, I'm gonna have to add your book to the thing. Just give me a second. Yeah, so to give yourself another shout out, Sue. We did it earlier. No, we didn't do it earlier. We did it during the week when we was doing the interview.
Yeah, on Paul's interview. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter as Savage Spiel. You can also find my blog at savagespiel.blogspot.com, and on there you can find a link to Matrons of Mystery, where you'll find character sheets to download and also a link to buy the book.
There you go. Neil.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Vodka Shot. You can find my occasional musings on gaming at omnihedron.co.uk. And next year, you'll be able to buy version 2 of Duty and Honor. It's finally going to happen. More Napoleonic fun than you can shake a musket at.
And like I said, we should 100% do that on here as well. And if we can, I mean, if you listen to the interview, I was talking about it. If we can try and like at least get like just before it goes live. If you want to do character creation, we could do character creation, right? And so you get a full package of the actual game.
Oh yeah.
So if we do it like if we did like character creation a week before, say the game goes live on Kickstarter, or a couple or 2 weeks. Do you know what I mean? I'm just trying.
Yes, we'll timetable it correctly to get the correct level of exploitation. To misquote the Blues Brothers, as I always do.
All right, cool. Natalie?
I don't really exist very much outside in terms of role playing anyway. I'm now hanging out on the sort of various Liminal Facebook groups and the Liminal Discord, and your Discord as well, but not many other places.
Ryan?
You can find me as Nearthlopic on various Discords. I exist on Facebook, but I have to know you in order to accept the friend request because I like to. Well, I don't need to be showing complete strangers pictures of my family. I'm weird like that. So, yeah, other than that, I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on a lot of social networks except for Facebook and Discord.
Thank you. Do you know what I found last night? And I'm really gutted.
No, tell us.
I found half a £10 note. Do you reckon if I took it to the bank, they'll accept it?
You might be able to get something if it's got. Has it got both serial numbers?
No, it's only got one.
Yeah, probably not then. Sometimes you can send them into the Bank of England and say your dog ate the other half or whatever, and they'll give it to you. But you might get lucky. But it's the Bank of England rather than just a bog standard bank.
Oh, okay. So send it into the Bank of England. Okay, that's all right. I'll get a stamp and send it off. Hi.
And if they don't do it, you're out the money for the stamp.
I know.
So it'll be a money losing venture. It's a gamble.
I'll go for it.
Not a bad payoff though. They almost certainly have some guidance on a website somewhere about how complete it has to be.
As for me, social media, join the Discord if you haven't done so already. That is probably the best and most primary place to get hold of me, or anyone really. Anyone that's part of the community can join the community, chat in there, discuss the shows, talk about the shows, sign up to the shows if you want to think about signing up. Follow me on Twitter. Facebook is pretty much the same. It's a Facebook group. It's just for people who generally don't use Twitter. And then YouTube, if you're watching this on Twitch or listening to this on the podcast, I have a YouTube channel where you can actually watch the VODs. So if you prefer to watch the VODs, you can watch it on YouTube. Or if you're watching this on YouTube or watching this on stream and you'd rather listen to a podcast version, there is a podcast version that you can find on Anchor, iTunes, all the major podcast places. I'm on there as Chambers of Roleplay. Not Chambers of Roleplay, Test Chamber. So, give that, if you can, give us some support that way. That'd be most appreciated. And don't forget, share it with your friends. That's probably the best way to spread the word is by word of mouth. But anyway, again, I'd like to thank Sue for running the game. If Sue didn't run the game, we wouldn't have had such a good time. If I ran it, it would have been shit. It would have been shitty Southend, with all the scummy weirdos that live in Southend. Oh shit! I've just lost all my viewers. They must all come from Southend. No, and
there'll be more fights.
I've now lost. I'd like to thank the players. If it weren't for the players, we wouldn't have had a game neither. So, there's that. So, for the last time, until next year, when we're going back to Liminal, because that's definitely on the cards, we will see you soon. Bye, everyone. Don't forget, you can support me on Patreon over at patreon.com/JamesCorp. And also get your name here in the credits. I'd like to thank Era Sherpa, Weefs, Orcus Dorcas, Matt Jones, Mike Nudd, Ludovic, Giuseppe, and J-Wall. Thank you very much for your continued support. Most appreciated. Bye.